So welcome guys, David Jenyns here from metaformula.com, and really excited tonight. We've got a session with Jeffrey Gibby, and he's one of the trainers over at MetaStock, and he's going to be taking us through some trend following stuff. Now, for those of you who know, the primary way that I like to trade the markets is using trend following systems, and I focus in a lot on the Nicholas Davis style, but it really doesn't matter what methods you use for identifying the trends. I just find that that's the best way to trade with the market. The trend is your friend, and you always want to make sure that you're moving with the market rather than trying to pick your tops and your bottoms. So we're going to be focusing in, and Jeff will probably tell you a little bit more about the Big Trends Toolkit. That's where we're going to be focusing in on tonight. We're going to go through. I actually got this presentation custom designed for you guys because we did do another presentation a little while ago, and I really wanted to make sure that you guys could see the maths behind the calculations, because I think that provides you some really good insight and hopefully gives you something that you can start to bring in to your own trading. So the last thing I'll just leave you with is, as you're watching this presentation that Jeff takes you through, think about your own trading plan. Think about what conditions you like a stock to exhibit before you consider buying it, and I think one of those should always be some sort of trend identification. And so maybe think about what Jeff talks about. How can you maybe take elements of that and put it into your system if you haven't already got a method or indicator to identify trends, or see if it's a good supplement or even substitute for what you're already doing. So perhaps I'll just leave it to Jeff, and if you've got any questions throughout, make sure you type them in, and I'll interject and make sure I'm your biggest advocate on this webinar. So Jeff, I'll let you take over.
Sounds good. Thank you. I appreciate that, David. It's good to be here. I appreciate you guys for coming out. Have any of you guys come to a presentation where I've talked before? Would you just let me know by chat? And while you're doing that, I'm going to go ahead and just say, you're going to be treated to the same thing you're treated to every time I do a presentation. And that is, I'm going to read you a little bit of a legal disclaimer. So, welcome tonight. Let's go ahead and get that out of the way. It keeps my lawyers happy, which keeps me happy. Today's demonstration is designed to instruct you on using MetaStock and the accompanying software plugins. It's not a recommendation to buy or sell, but rather guidelines to interpreting and using specific indicators and features within the software. The information, software, and techniques presented today should only be used by investors who are aware of the risk inherent in trading. Thomson Reuters and BigTrends.com shall have no liability for any investment decisions based on the use of the software, any trading strategies, or any information provided in connection with the company. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. We're not going to talk a lot about this today. A lot of you guys had MetaStock already. Let's go ahead and kind of get into kind of the genesis of what we do want to talk about today, and that's really has to do with kind of my role at the company and what I'm in charge of. I'm in charge of business development, actually, and as a result, I talk to a lot of people that I consider a lot smarter than myself when it comes to trading. Price is somebody that I consider a really good friend of mine now. He's also somebody that I have a lot of professional respect for. Here in the U.S., he runs a training organization. He also does a lot of money management. He also runs an options picking service. The reason that he kind of appealed to me on my radar when I was kind of starting out with the business development part of my job is they actually have a contest here in the U.S. that's called Timer Digest. And this is where quote-unquote technicians or people that think they have a really good approach to the market, what they do is they submit the trades that they do every time they make a trade. And Timer Digest, all it does is they keep track of these people's trades, and then they rank basically who makes the best trades. And he's, of course, been rated #1 many times in this particular annual contest that they run. I've had the pleasure to introduce and fly Price out to do a lot of events where we talk about his indicators and his methodologies. And the bottom line is I just have a lot of respect for kind of the way he looks at the market. And so I'm hoping that when I kind of go through the indicators, and we only have time to go through maybe 3 of the indicators he actually uses tonight, but I'm hoping that I can do them some justice and help you understand exactly what they do. Okay, so that should give you a little bit of background. He's somebody, again, that we should listen to. I think he has some really, really good techniques for the markets, particularly if you want to find stocks that are in good trends. Did you have anything that you wanted to add, David?
Yeah, not too much other than like I'm curious to know as well. Like we'll always try and see as you go through if you can link it back to how that would apply in an actual trading system. So I know we'll be talking about the indicators and then think about how someone would use that, which is we're going to be looking for your entries and your exits, and you probably need to bring your own money management, but identifying the trend is an important part of that entry signal.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I think the places that he excels. I mean, think about it this way: he's got an option trading business, and really, he's done probably about 20 years of research in the market in terms of finding big trends. And we're going to talk a little bit about that and kind of the mentality he brings to the market. But here in the U.S., there's about 4,500 different optionable trades, and really, kind of the methods that he designs really are designed to actually step over a lot of really big good trades to find the ones that have the biggest trends. And that's, I think, why I like him so much. A lot of the concepts that he likes, he's not in it to try to find just a winning trade. He just wants to find the trades that have the best potential. And so that's why we're going to talk about like the concepts of acceleration and how he uses that, the concept of efficiency and how he uses that. So let's get into the class. Obviously, with the toolkit, there's a big list of the indicators that are included here. We'll talk a little bit more about that at the end. I'll talk about how the system works and the amount of effort we put into the actual creation of the systems to kind of help you understand exactly what's in them. And let's just talk a little bit about the first indicator I want to talk about. And that is acceleration bands. Half a second. Recovering from a cough. I had to cough, so you're lucky I muted you. So acceleration bands, the concept behind acceleration bands is when Price was doing a little bit of his early research, he liked to trade based on moving averages and trends in moving averages. And generally what he would do is he'd look to find a pullback to a moving average. But what he found as he was doing a lot of this research early in his career is he found that a lot of stocks that really exhibited kind of these best trends really never came back. As soon as they started to get into the trend, they'd accelerate into the trend. And so the idea behind the acceleration bands is it's really designed to look for and identify stocks that are accelerating into a big trend. And just as if you're getting on the freeway, you want to find stocks that are in a trend, but you want them to find, when you can find stocks that are in that trend and they're starting to accelerate into that trend, they're starting to take off, if you would. That's the whole idea of these acceleration bands. So a couple points of that before I kind of show you what they look like in MetaStock is really kind of like his whole concept. He's looking for the best bang for the buck. His desire is to rotate capital to the best performing stocks. Again, we're looking for stocks that work really, really well here and rotate them out when the acceleration ends. He's looking for this acceleration period. Now, he's an options trader. I know a lot of you aren't option traders here because I asked that question before we started, but this is really an effort to defeat time decay and maximize efficiency when you're in a trade. In other words, we want to be in the stocks long when they're trending up and when they're trending up dramatically. And we want to look for those best performers. And all of his indicators and all of the methodologies that we're working with today are really designed to help you find stocks that are beginning to accelerate. And obviously, if you can achieve maximum movement in the stocks over the least amount of time possible, that's going to be something that's going to be very beneficial for you.
Question, when we think about the acceleration bands, is this, would you say, like an underlying condition that you want a stock to exhibit, or is it an actual entry signal when you're seeing, at one point in time where it breaks above?
Well, basically, you can use this as a system, and we're going to get into that a little bit. I think I'm going to answer your question. Let me know if I don't.
Yep.
And I do want to say this, too, because I forgot to mention it earlier. If you guys have questions as we're going through the acceleration bands or the other indicators that we're going to cover tonight, let me know, and I'll do my best to answer them as well. But with acceleration bands, what we want to do is we're looking for, basically, it's on my next slide. The way the acceleration bands are designed is 95% of the time you should be within your price action. But it's really when we're breaking up above one of those bands to take a long position, that's really when we want to look. That's when we say it's accelerating into a trend, so to speak. And it's one of the indicators that he uses. The way we've got it packaged up in MetaStock is you can use it as a standalone system. And I'll show you that a little bit. But you can also package it with his other tools and things like that. That's why we call it a toolkit, because you can, if you understand how the indicators work, they actually work very, very well together. The ones that I want to talk about today, the indicators that I want to talk about today, are basically the ones that he likes to talk about when he talks about his methods and his systems. Did that answer your question, David?
Yeah, yep. I think once we sort of start to see it on some of the charts,
I think you went to dinner.
No. Once we see it on the charts, it'll be a bit more clear.
Okay. So when Price explains this on a chart, he basically says, yeah, here's how I traded. I started using moving averages. He'd waited for him to test back to the band, or the moving average. But again, those stocks that start to accelerate into a trend, they never really come back to those bands until the move's over. And this was an indicator that he developed so that he could find really just kind of the best trending or the best moving stocks. Okay?
So would we be looking for stocks that are moving sideways first, and this is an indicator as they start to trend? So we'd be looking for things that are in consolidation, and then this is, okay, now we're picking into a trend?
Actually, generally when we already look at these particular stocks, generally what we'll find when you run the scan in MetaStock is you have a stock that's already in a trend because it's starting to peak above the band, and it's accelerating into that trend usually. Okay. So we're never going to get it at the start of a trend. It's really not the idea. What we want to find is we want to use MetaStock scanning capabilities to find those stocks that are in a trend and appear to be accelerating in a trend.
Yeah.
Let's look at some examples. I want to show how this looks on a chart. Let's see what my next slide looks before we do that. Here's the calculation of the thing. The thing that I like about this as well is even though Price put all of his work into it, he left everything open. So we tried, when we put together the manuals and stuff like that, we tried to put really as much detail as we can. We tried to keep it so that it would fit in the DVD sleeve. And what happened is we put so much information in it that it didn't fit. But let's go ahead and look at the chart. This is kind of how it's calculated. Let me go ahead, and I've got a US stock, I've got an Australian stock open in my MetaStock, and I'll just show you how these work. So let me go ahead and it's going to take me a second to switch over to MetaStock. You should be able to see it in a second here. If you would, David, let me know when you can see it.
Yeah, that's
because it does take a second to load.
Yep.
All right. Good. All right. So let's go ahead. I've got Google. You guys may have heard of Google. And I just want to kind of show you exactly how these are going to work on a chart for you. Okay. So all of the indicators, when we designed them out for MetaStock, we wanted them to be in the same place in the MetaStock list. So we start them with BTTK. That means Big Trend Toolkit, basically. Okay. Now you'll notice we have a 20-day and an 80-day acceleration band in here. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab this on a chart. I'm going to go ahead and drop it on here. Actually, I want to do the 20-day. So let me change my mind. I can do that, because let's go ahead and do the 20-day period moving average. And you'll notice that, yeah, most of the time, 95% of the time, we're going to kind of be in those bands. That's kind of how it's designed. We really want to look at these periods where there's kind of explosive growth. And usually Google's probably not going to be a great candidate for a system like this, because what we want to do is we want to scan for stocks. He really likes to find stocks that are in emerging markets like technology and those type of things. But this is a good example for me to demonstrate what we're actually looking for in a signal. Okay. Now the way that Price uses these acceleration bands is actually very, very simple. What he wants it to do is he wants it to come and cross up above the acceleration band. So in this case, we have a very well-established trend that started right about here, if you can see where my mouse is. But right here, we kind of pop up above the band, and it looks like there might be some acceleration there. Okay. So when this cross happens, and to be really, really specific, I'm just going to kind of draw it right here on the line. But when this cross actually happens, he's going to go ahead and take a note of the high of that dot bar. And he wants a little bit more of a confirmation when he takes a trade. Again, he wants it to confirm that it's in its trend. So as long as that price goes above the close of the following day, or the high of the day, as long as it closes up above, he'd go ahead and enter into a position at that point. So when we're taking a long position, basically we're waiting for the close to be above the band. That's our setup bar. What we do is when we wait for it to close, we want it to close up above that particular point, if that's clear. If it's not, let me show it to you on a chart real quick. What I'm going to do is I'm going to attach his acceleration bands system. Now, this is our expert advisor, so it'll plot the buys and the sell points on there for us, and you'll notice there's probably about 14 or 15 of them written. And I'm just going to find the one that's built on our acceleration bands. You go ahead and click Attach, and go ahead and click on Close. So right here we've got the penetration of the bands. We have the close above that high. It must have closed high above that high just barely that day, and that would confirm an entry signal for us, basically using the acceleration bands.
Jeff,
you'll notice that we have the penetration down.
A couple of quick questions, just so I understand as well the way this is calculated. Sure. Are we saying that the middle bar is a moving average, and then the difference between your upper band and your lower band, are they just like a standard deviation, or what's the shift from sort of one to the other band? Ah, okay.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Okay. Very cool. I can actually show you that middle line is just a 20-period simple moving average.
Yep.
Now, I don't have the technical expertise right now to be able to decipher in real time what the acceleration bands 20 is. Like that for my manual open, and I can actually tell you that. Okay, where's the calculation method for it? Okay, well maybe we'll come back to that. I think it might be in my... We basically do list out exactly how this calculation is done. The nice thing about it is we kept it very, very much open source, so you can actually go in there, and if you want to adjust the look-back periods and that kind of stuff. Basically, it has a lot to do with option volatility and the cycles that he sees in the volatility of the bands. And there's about 4 pages of acceleration band notes here in the manual. Just being the fact that I'm doing it on the fly, I can't find it right now, but there is a lot of notes that kind of talk about it.
Having the formulas there, that was the real key there for me, like to be able to dig in and go, oh, I can see the way it's actually being calculated, so that's good. And then the other thing was, having a look at the style, because clearly if it's up above this upper band and that's considered a buy, some people might go, oh, that's a... some people, people have got different ways they want to interpret price action, but they might go, oh, that's an oversold, overbought point in time. So some people might see that as, another indicator. So the key point I wanted to make here is for this particular type of indicator, and you mentioned he trades options, it's probably most suited to shorter time frames to be trading, I'd imagine. This is sort of like your medium to short term trading.
I think that depends on what you want to look at. But while you were kind of talking about that, I did open up the commentary because I wanted to talk a little bit more about this. I've actually zoomed that commentary to this day. A lot of what we actually took into the commentary comes directly from his trading course. Yeah. Somebody's calling me. I'm going to go ahead and send that to voicemail. I told Obama that I was going to do a presentation today. He shouldn't be calling me, but... So, basically right here what we're saying is if I'm looking at just the acceleration band indicator, it's indicating a long opportunity. Now, you asked about how long this could last. Generally, depending on kind of what you mean by short-term or long-term, generally he looks to hold on to something for 1 to 20 days if he buys it on this signal.
Yeah, yep.
So, now, what we tried to do is we've tried to take those type of things that he actually teaches in his class in terms of people that are new to kind of his methods and what he does, and we tried to kind of make it very, very specific to help him understand exactly what you're looking for. So that's why he added language like, if you're interested in buying the stock and you're a stock trader, you should go ahead and buy the stock. If you want to do options, you can look at kind of these couple of options. If you're very aggressive, you could look at this. We get really, really specific about how you would trade this if you had evaluated it. Now, when we go in and we do a scan using MetaStock for the acceleration bands, we're going to have a big list of different scans that are available or different things that are available. So we want to be able to go in and take a look at the ones we think that have the best opportunity. And that's where we're going to kind of start talking about pairing these indicators together and using them in conjunction, because we do have about 14 of the systems, or 14 different indicators that he uses in here. I'm going to talk about the ones that I like a lot. Okay, so then we have the entry rules for this particular method. We've got the exit rules. We say if you're looking to trade this position, you should get out when, and if this happens, or if this happens, or if this happens. And we try and get very, very specific about kind of how to go ahead and start to develop a mentality or a trading system if you want to use acceleration bands in your trades. Now, the system that I like to use, he actually pairs acceleration bands with Bollinger Bands. And I'd recommend you take a look at that. Basically, the idea is the same. He's just waiting for the penetration of both acceleration bands and Bollinger Bands on a chart. Okay. Let's see if I have any questions. If I don't,
no.
Let's go ahead and... Oh, go ahead, David.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so the flow that you wanted to go through, so are you looking at maybe describing the three indicators, and then will we get to see them combined, like you were talking about with running the Explorer together and tying three together?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Absolutely. So obviously with Google today, if we were looking at it, we wouldn't have a penetration of these bands. But you notice like some of the signals that we've got here on the chart are fairly good, especially if you're looking at a 1 to 20 day hold time. They get even better as we start to kind of pair up these indicators and learn about them and things like that. But if you did want to run a scan, for those of you that don't have MetaStock, which most of you do, when you answer my poll question, all of you did, but we did go ahead and we put together scans. So we could come in here and we could say, you know, I want to find stocks that have an acceleration band buy today. And we could go ahead and scan that against our universe and it would pull up a list for us. We also put together system test. The thing that I really, really like about this is it's very, very mechanical, which obviously we're technicians. We want things that are very mechanical. But the methods and the indicators that he uses really, really work either by themselves or in conjunction with each other. So let's talk about the next one. So this is acceleration band. Let me go back into the presentation here. And that'll take a second to load, but it won't take too long. And here's the calculation for those of you that are interested. This was probably what I was looking for in the manual there on the fly. But it serves as a trading envelope. It can be used on any time frame. And he says it defines likely support and resistance levels as the lower and upper acceleration bands. It's plotted around that simple moving average. And the upper and lower bands are always equal distance from each other. He basically uses an option volatility calculation in there, I think based on about 20 days. But we do have it documented in the manual in terms of, and completely open. So those of you that really want to dig into the mechanics of it should probably buy Price's book, Big Trends on Toolkit, Big Trends on Stocks, or something like that. Look it up on Amazon. Let me go ahead and go to the next slide. Oh, here's the entry technique. Again, the bar should be close high prior, and the prior's bar close should be both greater than the acceleration band. So again, he's looking for that concept of confirmation. He wants it to confirm. He's not really exactly interested in buying at the very bottom. He's looking for that acceleration concept. It's in a trend. It's defined a trend. It's accelerating into that trend.
Which kind of makes sense based on the types of stocks you said he was trading as well. With things in emerging markets, they're usually the ones that it's almost like some speculations happened, and it's starting to run up now, whereas some of these bigger stocks, they move a little bit slower, and you might not, if they do pop above that band, oftentimes they collapse. So it sort of, I think, would work better with more speculative end of the market.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And obviously, like if you're trading options, there's about 4,600 choices out there. So the idea of finding not just a trade that's good, but a really good trade using scanning and those type of techniques is a very, very sound one in the market. So now I want to talk. This is the slide you asked me to fix, David, and I can see that I didn't upload the fixed slide. But in any case, this is a slide that I borrowed from Price. and it talks about the concept of efficiency, which I wanted to kind of talk about a little bit in terms of how it's calculated. Obviously, this is a question that he asks the audience when he does his presentations, and he says, well, okay, if you're going to buy a call position on one of these two, say there's a white stock that's moving up very, very efficiently and one that's kind of rambling around, which one would you rather buy a call position on? And then the obvious answer on that is if you're buying a call position, you want low volatility because it brings down your option premium. But I also think it's important in terms
Looks like we might have lost Jeff. Let me see. Looks like he's just dropped out now. So just to double check though, you guys can still hear me okay, loud and clear. If you just want to post, okay. All right. Well, we might just give him just a moment or two before he comes back. So just to get a little bit of an idea as well while you guys are here and he's not. What types of trading are you guys doing? I always want to try and get an idea from my subscribers. Like, what are you guys going? Trend following stuff, or are you going shorter term stuff? Are you going what types of instruments are you trading? Because I really want to try and start to do a few more of these presentations with some of the trainers. We're in a fortunate position with metaformula.com, having built up the website a little bit. We now can get someone to come and do exclusive webinars for us. And okay, so I think YV mentioned maybe to do something in the Forex. So many of you guys trading the Forex market. We'll just see, just as some are typing in, because the Forex is a really hot market. I know one thing in regards to the Forex, a lot of people, they jump into the Forex, but they haven't necessarily traded some more unleveraged instruments and got really good results. And you know, we've always talked about this idea of the Forex is just going to multiply whatever results you're already getting. So if you're currently if you're trading just normal stocks and you're getting great results, then it's a good transition. But sometimes starting in on Forex isn't necessarily the best place to start until you prove yourself and your system. What have we got here? Trade mainly Brazilian futures. Okay, so we are talking some more leverage stuff. Despite the volatility, I'm still looking for a trend. Yep. I think I find the trend following stuff, like, because it really comes down to what time frame as well. If you, no matter what you are trading, I'm always a big fan of making sure that you trade with the trend, even if you're looking at a shorter time frame. So I think step one is always identify what trend you're actually going to be trading, like what time frame. That needs to be first, and then you start to think about, well, how can I identify that trend? And I mean, that's partly why I was asking Jeff early on when we were describing the first indicator, was what time frame should we looking to trade for that. So that first indicator really shows short-term trends. So looks like Jeff might be back actually.
Did you miss me?
Yes, but we kept going. I think we kept ourselves pretty occupied, just getting an idea of what everybody's sort of trading and the types of markets. But I'll let you take over.
Yeah, thanks, David. Maybe we should talk about efficiency of internet or something. I don't know. I hope I wasn't talking too long to myself. That does happen from time to time, and I apologize for the little interruption there. But I was beginning to talk about my commute from work. And really kind of the idea is this is the efficiency ratio was originally designed by Perry Kaufman. And it's trying to measure how efficiently a stock is moving. So in other words, if we're on the highway and we're making about 65 or 70 miles an hour, I think that would equate to about 100 kilometers an hour for those of you that are on a metric system, then you're going to be moving a lot faster than if you're kind of on a windy road getting to work, and that's kind of stuff in the morning. And so Perry Kaufman developed this indicator that Price uses a lot. It's called efficiency. In other words, if a stock was to move up 10 points a day every day for 10 days in a row, it would have a perfect efficiency ratio of 100%. But this is what efficiency attempts to do, is it attempts to find directional movement. How much trend are we getting per unit of price movement? In other words, are we taking 2 steps forward and 1 step back, or are we just taking 2 steps forward every day? And so the concept of efficiency is how much trend are we getting? Are we really in a trend that's well identified? The way that Price uses the efficiency ratio, and he uses it in combination with acceleration bands, is we want to focus on stocks that are moving efficiently in our favor. We want stocks that have either a plus 30 if we're doing a bullish trade or a minus 30 if we're doing a bearish play.
Yep.
I'm just looking for questions. So when we apply this to a chart, we basically get a plus 30, we get a minus 30 reading. It could typically go all the way up to 100, which it never does. It can go all the way to minus 100, which it never does. But we want to focus on those particular trades that have an efficient movement of at least above 30. Now you can use this indicator and you can trade it by itself, and it works fairly well by itself, at least when I system tested in MetaStock. But I like to pair it with his other indicators, which are the acceleration bands and the Bollinger Bands when I'm trading. Here's just a chart of how it would appear on a screen. I'll show that to you actually in MetaStock. And again, you know, it's basically what we're looking for, is we're looking for an efficient rate of change on a chart. Okay, there's the MetaStock code. It's absolutely open for you. And if you're using it as a system, the way that Price teaches to use it is he wants it to cross above 30. He's a big fan of confirmation, so he'll use that as a setup bar. Basically, when that efficiency ratio crosses above 30, he'll wait for that, and then he'll look at the high and he'll wait for a close above that high. So basically, if it closes up above that high where it was efficiently moving up, then he'll use that as his condition to enter a winning trade or enter a long trade.
I really like the way that I like the way that you really spelled that out, Jeff. I just wanted to make sure everybody got that. You always want to be looking for, once you define what style of trading you're doing, you're looking for what are the conditions that the stock must exhibit, and then usually you have a trigger on top of that. So what we first talked about, the first indicator would work really well as, you know, the trigger to get in, whereas the efficiency ratio would work really well as that underlying condition. That condition making sure that you're trading something that's consistent and not hugely volatile. So.
And then to exit, and I'll show this on a chart as well. I want to make sure I get really specific about how he watches these things and how he trades them. But with the exit, if you've entered on an efficiency signal, you would wait for it to cross under plus 30. We don't want it to start moving efficiently the other direction. And then he always basically waits to the close of the bar. So if he's trading a daily chart, he'd wait for that bar to close, and if it closed below that bar. Let me show you what I mean in MetaStock. I think that might be a little bit easier for people to understand, because pictures are a little bit more valuable than words sometimes. So let me go ahead and let's just go back to my chart of Google. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close the Explorer here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually just show you exactly how to apply the efficiency ratio. So I come back to my list of indicators here. I come down to the efficiency ratio, which is the indicator we're talking about right now. I'm just going to drag it and drop it on the chart. I'm going to drop it right here because I want it to show up in its own window. And with MetaStock, that's what you would do, basically. Okay. So if we were using the acceleration bands and we wanted to kind of also use efficiency, they are very good indicators that work fairly well together. Let me just kind of show you exactly what we're looking for when we trade the efficiency. And I'm going to take the expert advisor off the chart here and close the commentary window so we can get a better view of the chart. Basically what we want to do for our trades when we get an efficiency reading, and I'm just coming back into the time to show a good example. But you'll notice right here is when the stock began to trend up. Again, we're not getting in at the bottom of the trend. We're waiting for efficient movement in a trend in this particular case. But right here is where we actually cross. This exact day is where we actually crossed. Now when that happens, I actually probably need to put it on the day before because I need to be able to see the high. But when that happens, based on kind of the rules that he uses with efficiency, what we're going to do is we're going to come in here And we're going to put a line right above the high. We want it to close, not just, we want to close it anywhere above this high. Okay? We don't want to buy just because it crosses up above that high. He's actually very, very specific about wanting it to confirm and close above that high. Okay? So in this particular case, on the efficiency ratio, this is the day where we had our setup. We wait for another day where we have a confirmation, and this is where we'd actually enter the trade. Now, obviously, this was a fairly good example because we had a pretty good move down. Here's where we'd exit the position based on his rules. So we would take a look at the day where we cross down below plus 30. That's right here. And we would close when it goes down below this low, which I think was right about here. No, it's a little bit higher. Right here is the low for that day. So we'd close. We'd get out on this day. Did that make sense, David? Did I do a good job of explaining the entry and the exit condition there, or should I do it again?
No. I think you did. Maybe I'd want to try and look at the coding a little bit more, but probably the way that my guys might end up using it is not so much for the exit conditions, because a lot of them have their money management rules and their stops set up based on things like lowest low in the last X number of periods. But I think it would work really well for a lot of them as an initial condition to make sure that you've got the stock trading, let's say, above 30, which shows that yes, we're getting some consistent growth there, and then that combined with the previous indicator, once it breaks above, that's our trigger to enter. So I think you've hit the nail on the head there. It looks like there's a couple of questions coming through though.
Okay, let's look at them. Okay. So this person named David said define outcome, define style, time frame. Maybe you want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I was actually with the next question. Well, I was just saying the way that I like to think about things first, when you're going through, like, we're going to talk about a whole lot of different indicators, and same in the trend in the toolkit, there are a whole bunch of different indicators. So first you want to define what is the outcome. Are you looking to grow your capital and get capital growth from it, and you're not looking at pulling the money out on a regular basis, or are you doing it as an income trader where you need to pull out consistent profits? Once you do that, that'll help you define what style and time frame that you fall into, and also give you an indication as to the types of instruments you're trading. You're not probably going to try and trade the Forex if you're working a 9-to-5 job and you can't watch the market on a regular basis and you're really looking for capital growth. If you're working full time and you can't watch the markets, then that's when you might look at more longer term trend following stuff. So it really comes back to what is it that you're trying to achieve, what that goal is. That'll help you define what style, that'll flow into what instruments you'll trade to suit that. Then we want to find the entry conditions, and then we have our trigger that works over the top of that. So I'd say the first indicator that we went through would work well as a trigger, and this second one would work well as a condition. So, but I'll let you jump back in, Jeff. It looks like you're typing something away too.
Yeah, actually, that was really good because it allowed me enough time to actually type in exactly. They wanted to know. We're looking at a 20-day thing. I've actually typed in the chat window basically the calculation that we're doing. We're basically saying that the efficiency ratio is total net price change. And you take that total net price change and you subtract, or you divide it by the sum of price changes as positive values. So what we're saying is, okay, if we made 20 points, but there was a total of 100 points movement there, that wouldn't be as efficient as if we moved 20 points and there was 20 points of movement there. Obviously that would be a perfect efficiency ratio. So that's kind of what the calculation is, and we're using a parameter of 20. So that was an attempt to answer Bernard's question of what's the parameters that we're using.
Yep.
I don't see any more questions, so let me show you kind of how we've integrated this into MetaStock as well. We spent so much time actually kind of putting together the commentaries and things like that, and I have to admit that I'm very, very proud of this particular method and the systems and the way that we've got them written into MetaStock. So let's go ahead and take a look at the commentary here. And so there's that buy we were talking about. That's where we penetrated the buy point. And here would have been that exit where we cross down below 30 and penetrate the low on a close. And basically, if we're following his methods very strictly, we will get out at that exit based on the close, never during the day. But again, this is a toolkit. We're trying to bring some tools to the table that are very efficient in helping you use what you need. So let me go ahead and go here, and I want to show the commentary off for a minute. Right here, again, we've tried to say exactly kind of like what he's looking for. We've tried to find the expert. We've done this with all of the 14 different systems that we put into it and the 14 different methods and the 14 different indicators. But basically here, again, we're just kind of reiterating the rules. On this particular day, if you're looking at it in MetaStock, it would say the efficiency ratio is over 30. And if you're interested in this stock, kind of here's your strategies for how to trade it. You could be to buy the stock. If you're looking at trading in options, this is a method that might last 3 or 4 months. So buy options according to those parameters. And they last maybe 1 to 8 weeks. If you're really aggressive, here's what you can look at it for an option play. And here's where you should basically look to exit these particular methods. So we put together some really good documentation, not only just in the manual, but we tried to include a lot of, if you're just wanting to follow it as a system or a method approach, after you've done some testing with it and are comfortable with it, we tried to include exactly what the rules are and make that understandable in such a way that it was usable and not just a bunch of information. And on the days that it's usable as well. Now I do want to point out something. If you do like acceleration bands and you do want to like efficiency as well, in the MetaStock Explorer you can actually go in. Well, let me open up the Explorer here. And what I can do is I can say I want to do an acceleration band scan. So I want to find all the stocks that are accelerating into a trend. And then I will also want to, if I hold control, a lot of people don't know this, but if you hold control, you can select another system. So I can say I also want to find stocks that are efficiently moving. So not only do I want the stocks that are accelerating into trend, I also want them to be moving efficiently. And then the way that that would work is then I would go in and I'd hit Explore here. I define an order. It really almost doesn't matter. I'd go ahead and click on OK. And then I add my securities. Let's just do the ASX 100 very quickly. I click OK. Oh, and so what it's going to do is now we're going to run a total of 2 scans. Basically, it's going to run through and it's going to weed out all the ones that are accelerating. It would start our second scan and it would go and find all the ones that are also moving efficiently. So we can actually pair these indicators up fairly easily to find just the ones that are also, meeting the requirements of the scans. Okay, so the other indicator that I kind of wanted to highlight a little bit today, and it looks like we have about 15 more minutes to talk. So let me go ahead and go into another indicator that Price really likes to talk about when he starts to talk about his trading setups and the methodologies that he uses. And that is the Williams percent R. That's another thing that I like about Price. He doesn't really necessarily, he's just looking for techniques that work. They don't necessarily have to be indicators he's written himself. He's just using methods that he's found to work well for him in his career of trading. Now there is a bit of a difference, and I'll kind of warn you guys about this in case you're familiar with percent R. There's a difference in terms of the way that Price likes to look at the indicator as opposed to the way that Larry Williams designed it. And so there's a bit of a different scale. The indicator is exactly the same, but the difference is this. It's very simple. Basically, instead of going from minus 100 to 0, it goes from 0 to 100. The values and the way you read the indicator are identical. Price just, when we were designing out the system, said, I'd really like to look at it this way. And the reason is I think it's a little bit easier for people to understand if they're looking at something and I tell them to look for a specific value, that 80 would be a good level to look at, or instead of minus 75. And so that basically there is a little bit of a different scale, but the way you would read Williams percent R using his methods is exactly the same as you'd be used to otherwise. Hope that makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah, we did it the Big Trends way in this particular case. this is the way that it'll look in a chart. We'll actually kind of get into an example. The way he likes to trade this when he's looking at it, and these are the three indicators that he likes to use. But his buy setup for this particular is he's looking for the 30% bar, the 30 bar percentile cross above the 80% threshold. Okay, so if you're looking at it the other way, the way Larry Williams would, I believe, because I have a hard time understanding minus 100 to 0 as well, but I think he'd be looking for stuff above 20. Triggers, I'm just used to looking at it the way that actually Price Headley looks at it, so I always look for it to be above 80. I believe that would be minus 20 if you're looking at it in the standard scale. Trigger occurs when the security moves past the height of the setup bar. So your height, your percent R cross is over above the 80%, that's his trigger. And then he has a setup, and that's where he actually kind of gets into the trade as long as it goes above that high. Again, he's willing to wait another bar. He wants to make sure that and get a confirmation. Again, we're looking to cherry pick trades here. We're not looking for just a good trade. We're looking for the ones that confirm. And he's really about looking for confirmation. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide. Go ahead.
Yeah, quick one. To understand the way that he sort of ties some of these indicators together, is he trading each indicator as like its own separate signal, or does he like to look for, you know, crossover, or does he only look for crossover when, if he runs a scan for one particular thing, finds that he's got a whole bunch of different potential candidates, and then he scans again to try and further filter down? I'm just wondering how they sort of tie together.
It's a great question, and in fact, it's something that very recently. See, I up until back in October, I actually flew Price in to do a class here in the greater San Jose area, and up until recently, I've always been using just the individual systems by themselves, like acceleration bands and Bollinger Bands. The one that combines the two is one that I really, really like. When we were actually, what was very, very eye-opening for me, and I've seen Price speak many, many times, and I think this just goes to show you can always learn. But what kind of struck me, and one thing that just kind of just knocked my socks off, is he actually will use multiples of the indicators. He usually, the ones that he likes to talk about, and I have a recorded demo I think we should send out to everybody that signed up, that is him talking about his favorite indicators for MetaStock. And basically, though, what I very much learned about that class is he'll use acceleration bands, but he's also using them with efficiency ratio, and he's also using that with Williams percent R. Did that answer the question?
Yeah, spot on.
Now, me, myself, I've been using acceleration bands plus Bollinger Bands by themselves. So when I flew him into San Jose and we listened to him speak just a few weeks ago, it really, really opened my eyes in terms of kind of how he uses the indicators. And I was surprised that I learned something new, because I've probably heard Price speak many, many, many times. And he always talks about the indicators and how he uses them. I didn't realize how he was tying them together and how he was using MetaStock. So it was really, really a very eye-opening experience. So, okay. His exit criteria on Williams percent R is he's going to wait for it to come back to a reading of 79 or lower. The security closes below the low of this bar, basically. So let me show you what that is in MetaStock, how he'd identify a trigger and a setup, and how he'd go ahead and follow through with an exit on that. So let's go ahead and get back into MetaStock Pro. I'm going to go ahead and close this down. This is our, actually, let's just go ahead and add the Williams percent R. So we've got a few different ways he likes to look at it. He likes to see it of yesterday, 2 days ago, and here's percent R, the way he uses it. There's also another way that he really likes to use it, and that's a retest method. The values that we're looking at are 80 and 20. I'm just going to add those as horizontal lines here. Okay. And so here I have the 80 reading. And so you'll notice that when we start to trend, a lot of the indicators can confirm each other. So we have the efficiency by here, and here the percent R is also giving us a positive reading. And those are the kind of readings that Price really likes to see from the class that we had. So in this particular case, if we were looking at the efficiency ratio and we were looking at a confirmation of the indicator, we'd have one at percent R. Not only are we moving efficiently, but percent R is giving us a method to go ahead and buy as well. So I hope that answered your question, David.
Yeah, kind of
There was
tying
an
a few
attempt
together.
to.
No, I think that's good, tying a few together.
Now again with the in MetaStock integration, and I'm just really proud of the work that we did on this because we really tried to put as much of his 20 years of knowledge into all of these indicators and how he would use them in here. Now the one I'm talking about right now is the %R system. He also has a retest method that he really likes, and we're just not going to have time to talk about it, but I will kind of highlight some of the systems that he really, really likes and how they work. But you'll notice if we're using efficiency, I just changed the expert over. I look at %R and I'm still getting a buy. And this turned out to be a really, really good trade in this particular example. But again, we've got the instructions, if I move that commentary over about why we're getting the buy, how long the signal should last based on that indicator, where we should look to do here, and even a fairly good description of what the indicator is and where it's from. We spent a lot of time really kind of tying this all together and trying to make something that's highly, highly valuable for people that not only were his students and went through his courses, but for people that really didn't have a lot of experience with kind of what his methods are and how they work.
I think, which is great. I was going to add, because we've got a package we call the MetaStock Formula Center, and it's a collection of a whole bunch of different formulas sort of in the public domain, and it sort of organizes it. But a big thing that we get, a lot of people always ask, is, can you explain the way that this was calculated? A lot of them do have descriptions, but also a lot of them don't, and sometimes it's really hard to know what the intention of the original coder was unless there's some sort of explanation. So getting something like this, I think the real key is in the big trends, and why we chose this one in particular is how transparent it is. Not only do you get to see the formulas behind it, but then you also get the explanation on how to interpret it, which I think that's sort of what made this pack stand out.
Really, I thought it was because I'm like, this is the one I want to talk about. This is the one I want to talk about. This is the one I want to talk about. But really, when it comes right down to it, this is a product that was hugely designed and involved in designing, and we spent a lot of time both talking to Price and working with the team and trying to get just every single detail right. And so, I will admit it. I'm very, very proud of this product. I think it's one of the things I like most about my job is I get to work with these people that I really have a lot of respect for and that kind of stuff. I'm going to go off in a bit of a different direction. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the other systems that are in the toolkit and kind of what they do and that kind of stuff real quick, and then we'll just kind of wrap up and those kind of things. So I'm just going to let me open up the expert advisor here, and we'll see which ones stand out. I can tell you about. Let me tell you about my best trade ever and my worst trade ever. Back in the year 2000, there was a stock that's publicly traded called Taser. David, are you familiar with that stock?
No, it sounds like something that you'd get zapped with, though.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is, actually. In fact, I think the symbol, let's see if I remember it, TASR, maybe. I can show you. This is my best trade and my worst trade ever. And let me see if I can, this was a few years ago. I'm going to try and estimate the date. I think it was like, 2001. Let's see where this big, huge thing was. Okay, yeah, this is it. Okay, let's just talk about this stock in general.
The good old days.
And I'm going to detach the expert. And this stock has split many, many times, and it's had its heyday, to say the least. But it split many, many times. I think when I bought it, it was up at about $100, and I think it was really like one of those things that always come out in the news where it's like, this stock went up again today. Oh, it went up again today. Oh, the stock went up again today, and we'd almost kind of like, we'd be joking about it. Well, I'm not going to buy that. It's 100% over like its 200-day moving average. There's no way it can continue to go up. Gravity is going to have an effect on this stock at some point. And for months and months and months and months, we watched this particular stock. There's stocks like this all the time that just are kind of moving almost parabolic. And eventually gravity does catch up to them. And I'm not sure if it was during this spike right here or this spike right here, but I can get one of these days, we were just looking at this stock every day, and we're just like, man, this thing just cannot go up. I think it was this one, actually. This cannot go up anymore. I'm like, well, I've said that for the last 6 months. It goes up every day. I'm going to go ahead and take a trade on this particular stock. And so I did. And let's just say it was this day. Again, this was years ago. I don't really remember, but it was like right here on one of the top days. And sure enough, I made probably about 25-30% in one day, and I'm like, well, there's no rationale behind this particular method. I'm just going to get out of the stock because I'm sure it's going to go down. And the next day, you notice we have a pretty good trading range. And so I'm feeling pretty good about that trade. I'm like, well, that was pretty fun, and I was just in it for a day, and I made all this money. Well, maybe I should do that again, right? And, of course, I did. And, of course, it went down that day, and I gave back everything I had kind of gained on that stock. But a lot of stocks kind of can exhibit this, particularly stocks that are kind of, there are stocks all the time that start to get news coverage because they go up every day. And one of the methods that I really, really like in Big Trends Toolkit is he actually looks for stocks that he calls goes into this kind of parabolic move, so to speak, where they're moving and moving and moving in a certain direction. And what he calls those particular systems are 100% above its 100-day moving average. The difference is he's actually done research in terms of these stocks. And he almost calls it going into orbit because it takes a tremendous amount of energy to get something up there. And then, of course, everything that goes up, you think gravity is going to affect it. But there are these stocks that kind of go on these parabolic moves. And if you're looking for kind of plays like that, like these tasers, but a better way to trade them, these systems that he has designed around kind of funneling these parabolic moves, but using appropriate methods to lock in risk and those type of things are really very good methods to use. So anyway, that's just one of the methods that are in there that I kind of like. It's a very fun scan to run. You just look for these stocks that have kind of really kind of gone on above their basically 100-day or 200-day moving average, and then there's a very good way to play those. So that's some of the methods he looks at. He's a big fan of the NASDAQ and the S&P 500 as indicators. We've got methods that talk about that. I really don't have a lot of time to talk about all of the methods. There's like 20 years of research that go into them, but it kind of gives you an idea that this is somebody that's looking for really not just trends, but particularly stepping over small trends to find bigger trends. And that's why he plays such a good options game, and that's why he's such a options advisor and a market timer and things like that. What he's really doing is he's willing to step over a lot of good trades to find those really, really good trades. I can't say enough about how much I have respect for him as a market technician, as a market timer, and I actually even flew him down into San Jose just so that we could kind of have a chance to have 100 people listen to him speak. So if you like this, let's go ahead and kind of get back into the where the rubber meets the road. If you like these kind of methods, if you want to see something that's very, very scientific, something that I like, and something that's got a lot of research and market timing behind it, here's kind of what we put together in the toolkit. We've got 14 indicators. We have about 14 systems that are included. So we talked a little bit about acceleration bands. I really like the ones that combine the acceleration and the Bollinger Bands. There's your percentage above the 200-day and 400-day moving average. The NASDAQ versus S&P 500 is a very good kind of market timing type of an system. Anyway, all of this work, all these methods that he likes to use when he's looking at different trading techniques and different trading strategy, all included in just one kit. And it's a system that we use. Again, MetaStock's been won awards. That's kind of out of place in there. But it's a method that he uses to kind of identify. It's all of the work that he's done, all the work he does in his coaching, all the things that he manages money with. And we charge about $500 for it. You can get it for $449. If you need a MetaStock trial, you can get a free trial of MetaStock as well. I'll throw that in. I do offer this particular toolkit on a money-back guarantee. So you can play with it if you like it. If it helps you make money, You can keep it. If you don't like it, there's not really a lot of risk in there. We'll give it to you on a money-back guarantee. If you need a copy of MetaStock or a copy of MetaStock Professional to go with it, that's how we'll give you that. I set up a special website just for this particular class. That is www.equus.com/JenynsBT. You can give me a call. Let me put my email address in here too. You guys are welcome to ask me questions if you like.
Just while Jeff's typing that in as well, guys, because there are a couple of questions that came through. So it's not included in MetaStock Pro. This is an additional, but fortunately as part of the webinar and the relationship I've got with Jeff, we have lined up that little bit of a discount as well. So rather than the price that you get it straight off the website, you can get a little bit cheaper if you go through using that link. As far as the question, is there anything that we'd recommend specific for futures? Just remembering price does trade a lot of derivative type products. It could suit futures as well, so you'd really want to try and look for the things that go for the, if you remember, we looked in some of the descriptions and it talked about the time frame. You'd probably just want to go for those sort of shorter time frame style indicators that would match for you. So I don't know if you had any final things that you wanted to add, Jeff.
Yeah, what I would always add, I think, with the 20 years that I've probably spent looking at charts and things like that, usually a method that works well in a stock market is going to work well in an Australian stock market or in a futures market. I would say this though, you're probably not going to get a lot of hits on the 100% above the 200-day moving average system on a futures market unless we're really in a huge trend on it. It's just not the nature of the way that they move. But I believe acceleration bands and Bollinger Bands and some of the more kind of, shall we say, traditional indicators and traditional systems are going to work well. But the bottom line is I'm not going to come in here and recommend you trade anyway. In any specific way, I should say. And what I mean by that is I think a lot of people have their own different methodologies that work well for them. I would encourage you to try Toolkit on the futures market so you're interested in, and if it helps you make money, then I'd encourage you to keep it.
Yeah, well, I think having the trial, that's a good place to start. So, I mean, you can't go wrong with the trials. I'm always a big fan of that, and we've also got a link if you want to trial out just MetaStock on its own. I know most people on here have it, but we've actually set up a new link which is just buymetastock.com/trial, and then you can get yourself a free trial copy of MetaStock, which is a great way to test out, particularly if you're running some of the older versions of MetaStock as well. I know in the past, I think anything above version 7 or 7.2 actually is pretty solid, and since then they've been adding a whole lot of extra stuff. A lot of it's to do with the indicators and things like that. So if you want to trial one of the newer versions to see what's been added in, if you have got an old copy, then you can just do that through the trial, and then if it's right for you, you keep it. If it's not, then stick with the copy you've got. So,
and you can also just do the trial up on this page too, just in case you don't remember the URL too. Basically, it'll ask you if you want a trial of MetaStock. That's optional. It'll ask you if you want to buy the toolkit, and that's optional as well. So you can do either and or both.
Perfect. All right. We might wrap it up about there, Jeff, unless you got anything else.
I think I'm good. I'm going to... okay. If you guys do send me questions over the next couple of days, I'm going down to... do a trade show in Vegas. So if you send me some questions, give me a little bit of time to get back to you. And thanks for coming tonight.
Oh, actually, one last thing I will just throw in. You guys, they've just let me know as well. They're having a MetaStock seminar here in Melbourne. So I know a few of the guys listening are based in Melbourne, and there's a good chance that I'm going to get along. I'm pretty sure. I just need to check some dates, but I'm going to get along to that expo as well. So if you're in Melbourne, let's catch up in person and come along to the expo in Melbourne. I'll send out some details perhaps with this email about it.
Yeah, we are coming down to Melbourne. We just kind of announced it, and I don't even know what the dates are yet, but I'm going to try and make it down to that particular class as well. And we're actually flying Price in. We're going to fly in Price from the U.S. To do classes in Melbourne.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll watch out for that, and I'll let you guys know.
All right. Thanks, guys. I appreciate you guys coming, and let me know if you have questions. I'm here to serve.
Thanks, Jeff. See ya.